Episode 22, Cutoffs in Coffee with Austin Jochum. What's going on, everybody? This is CT and Coach James, and we are here and excited for you guys to hear today's podcast. We have Coach Austin Jochum on the podcast, on the show here, and the guy is not only a strength coach, he's a thinker, he's a writer. He is really challenging kind of what's happening now in strength and conditioning, and he has taken inspiration from all over the field, and he's put it into what he calls Jochum strength. And I'm really looking forward to everybody hearing this because, again, like I said, he challenges what's going on, and he is a different perspective, but he thinks so critically and so deep about everything. This is an important show for anybody out there to listen to.
And today's sponsor is Underdog Fitness, as always, but we have another sponsor for this episode today. Check out Blue Wink's blue light blocking glasses. I know you guys are on a computer a lot, screen time, tablet, video games, whatever it is, protect your eyes. Blue light is dangerous. I said it, it's dangerous. All right, so go check out this website, bluewinks.com, BLUWINX.com. Use our discount code COFFEE for a 10% off discount. That information is going to be in the bio of this episode. Check it out. Seriously, I've noticed a difference when I use my blue light glasses at night. It helps me go to bed. I pop those bad boys on when I'm watching TV at night so that I don't stay up in bed just wondering why I can't fall asleep. Check out at bluewinks.com for your blue light glasses.
And if you like what we're doing here on Cutoffs and Coffee, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to us on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. We also have some gear. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, reach out to us. We'll get you some gear. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I know you will love this episode. Keep chopping wood with Austin Jochum. Coach Austin Jochum, what's going on, man? Welcome to the show, Cutoffs and Coffee.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Coach. This is awesome energy. I should have worn my cutoff. I got a cutoff that I got for slow pitch softball that I wear all the time. I should have wore it on the podcast. I'm in the basement right now in Minnesota, though, so it's kind of cold.
Yeah, we could imagine. We don't have that weather quite yet. I want to start, bro. You always awesome podcast. Anybody who hasn't listened to the Jochum Strength podcast, go ahead and subscribe to that and listen to his stuff on Apple, wherever you subscribe to your podcast. But you always start your podcast with a quote. You got any quotes that you feel like starting this podcast with?
Ooh, let me go look. Can I check I got the meditations quote. Actually, I might go with the paradox quote. Hold up. There's two that I not read this morning, but I do a little I call it spirit walk. And then I kind of meditate on quotes that I really like and try to make sense of it to myself. Yeah. It's like I read it. If I read it the first time, it's like, oh, like there's something deeper there. I'll usually kind of take that quote and expand upon it, but I don't want to butcher it. So I'm going to go with let's go with the paradox quote. So it was from Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century by Brett Weinstein and Heather Hartigan. I'm not sure, I don't know the book, but Heather, his wife. And it's talking about paradoxes. And he says, paradoxes are what we see when we stand in the wrong place, seeing things with faulty models. They are X's on the map, inviting us to dig deeper and not to pretend we have the answers. And that was something he's talking about in this book. He's talking about the evolutionary, like we see things, but then we try to explain them away in a different way. And you have that paradox. And he's like, we just kind of explain those things away and go away from him. And it's like, paradox should be like, oh shit, like we should dive deeper in there. Like we don't have the answers. Like we don't have the answers in that moment. We should dive deeper into that. And to me, that's like, in our field, if you want to just take it in our field, it's like landing mechanics. All right. You look at one of the best athletes in the world and they don't do landing mechanics. So you got a paradox there. You got the best athletes in the world not doing and I always say it's like the 5'11" white guy in the tight polo, because that's me, like in the tight polo telling you to do these landing mechanics. It's like there's a paradox there. You got something wrong there. And that should invite us to dig deeper into what that is rather than just swear by the experts, which, as we'll talk, like the experts, there are no experts, like you got to continue to dig and go deeper into some of these thought processes. So that was a quote that I thought about this morning a lot.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And I could imagine why that would take a spirit walk. And again, I've got a note that I want to talk about that a little later, but why you'd actually have to take a walk and kind of meditate it and meditate on it and think about it. Cause some of this stuff is deep. And if you read it it could just go over your head, or it could hit you a little harder. And it sounds like, you like to take your time and kind of digest and pick apart a few of these things. Before we get into your story, I like to ask this question to start, because your social media is awesome. You can learn a lot about you. You can learn about Austin Jochum and what happens over there at Jochum Strength by just going to your Instagram and following you on social medias. What is something that we need to know, not only James and I, as hosts of the show, but our listeners need to know about you that we can't find just by going through a quick Instagram search?
Oh, I think my Instagram is probably totally, I don't want to say totally wrong, but people see like the lifting. And that's why I like try to stay away. I love the lifting part of it, but like I try to do some of the flips and rolls and the isos and different, because it's like you go to any social gathering and people will be like, oh, that's the weightlifter. That's the meathead. And they come up and they talk to you and they ask about your fucking bench press. So they ask like, all right, I've been working on this. It's like, I don't give a shit about that, man. Like I care about like human development and like, I do not care about your bro bench press that you're talking to me at this party that you're like too ham boned to even have a conversation in the first place. And I'm like, so that's the part that like kind of drives me not away from the field, but away from like, I hate the meathead side of things. I love making fun of meatheads and I've been there. And I think that's why I can say it is because I went full meathead. I've been a meathead for a long time and just trying to leave and evolve from that setting and not have that full on like, all right, yeah, dude, like hit 3 sets of 10 tricep extensions. Like I'm just not in that world. And I think if you look at the Instagram without reading the captions and you just see a lot of heavy weight and you're like, oh yeah, like how do we lift more? So I think that's probably the biggest misnomer of the Instagram is like, you got to read the captions. You got to dig a little bit deeper into what we're talking about. The videos are just because they're cool. I think they're cool.
Yeah, man. And the captions are super, super powerful. And we'll get to that eventually, but tell us your story, bro. Tell us how, like you said, you were a meathead, college football player. How did you get to the point that you are at now, where you own multiple facilities? You're working out at multiple different places. You're big and strong. You use gymnastics. You got guys flipping around and playing games on your social media. Kind of tell us how this all evolved, how Jochum Strength evolved, how you got to the place that you're at now.
Yeah, so I think it started kind of in high school. I came from not a family, I don't want to say nerds, but like I was a mega book reader. Like Harry Potter, I devoured. I stayed in midnight release for the midnight release. I stood in line for the midnight release. I remember this, for the 7th book, got it and read it within like a week. Like I was super into it, super into Twilight, like any of the fantasy worlds. I loved writing when I was a kid. But that was kind of like not rewarded after a while, like it was like as a kid, nobody really cared. I would wear like Pokemon shirts and like Yu-Gi-Oh, but so like I was the nerd, man, like nerd, and it was not rewarded. And I went out for a football in maybe like 5th or 6th grade. And I remember this is like your parents start to be like, oh, you're the football guy now. And it was like you're under the lights 5th grade football thing where you just playing like the little scrimmage, half field scrimmage against your other 5th and 6th graders from your school. And I scored a touchdown in that fifth grade scrimmage or whatever it was under the lights with my parents there. And it just instantly hooked me because of all the rewards that you got. It was all the coaches telling you were great, all the parents telling you you're great, everybody that came to see you. And you're like, oh, like maybe this is what I should do because it's kind of like rewarding. So I went into the sport world, kind of just completely neglected what my natural calling was in the nerd world of anything that I enjoyed, and went, all right, I'm the football guy because this is rewarded. Everybody's rewarding me for this. And went through that process in high school, freshman, sophomore year, playing up a little bit in like the varsity world, and kind of just got myself in. And I wasn't into lifting a ton right then. I have a huge manual labor background with my dad and grandpa, which like, so you have the strength, you're just kind of bigger. You're from a small town. So you're able to step onto the high school football field and like be all right, like hold your ground, but never was in the lifting world until sophomore year when I was hanging out with some of the older guys. And I'm like, they started to go off to college and I was hanging out with them when they're kind of in college, kind of in high school. And I'm like, I'm hanging out with kind of losers, like it was like going to parties like 2 to 3 times a week as a sophomore in high school, like it just did not seem right to me. It felt like I was hanging out with people and I was watching what that was leading to. So I would hang out with the senior group. They went to college and like 50% of them got kicked out of the college within like a month of being at college. I'm like, I can't, like, that's not my goal. So my high school head coach kind of grabbed me and pushed me into the weight room side of it. and is like, hey, like you could come here. And again, that was another instant where I got in the weight room, have this huge manual labor background, a bigger, decently like broad sized shoulder. So you step in there and it's like, oh, you're good at this. You can be good at this. People are rewarding you for being good at this. And you sit there and you're lifting weights and you're just naturally good at something. And people are telling you, all right, you're great. You're great. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. So it was like my life in high school. That was the biggest meathead. It was 5 days a week of like clean and jerks, like incline press. Like we were sanding everything. We were doing it. And there's so many pieces of the story that I want to tie together because my junior year, I was back squatting. It was like 450 and I herniated a disc on the squat and I couldn't move. I had no idea. Like I had zero knowledge. I was just straight meatheading at this point. And so I had no idea what happened, but I knew I couldn't move. Like I was stuck. It was like, and then I started to move a little bit, got able to walk. And then the next morning when I woke up, I couldn't get out of bed. And like when you can't get out of bed, when you can't move and you're stuck, you just went from like everybody telling you how great you are to like being stuck. And I was like, wow, this is messed up. Like something's wrong here. Got it checked out, found out it was herniated disc, go to a PT or a chiro, something like that in the small town. And basically what they told me right away is like, never deadlift again, never squat again, never do a bunch of this stuff again. Like you're basically like, we're going to do all we did is some traction stuff. We let the body heal by itself. Isn't that not what I know, but that's not, we are telling us like, we need the cracky backy. We need all these sorts of like modalities and you're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. Never going to be able to do that. I was 16 years old and I have a grandpa that is always at our house working construction who is 70 and is doing all these things. So like even in my head in that moment with zero knowledge, I was like, that doesn't seem right. Like I'm never going to be able to pick something up again. Like we put a bad term of a deadlift on it, but that all a deadlift is picking something up. So you're telling me at 16 years old, I'm never going to be able to pick something up. I'm never going to be able to squat down again. And it just didn't seem to make sense, which I think really sparked my curiosity into the field and kind of built up to where I am now of like swearing some of that stuff off just because I've experienced it. And we let the body heal, got back into it, had a solid senior year, got to St. Thomas. And this is where another paradigm, the shifting of my thought process came is my freshman year. I was the strongest kid on the football team in college by pretty much a long shot as a freshman coming in with all the seniors of anything. I remember we had a freshman max lift or something like that. I cleaned like 350 and so it was like just this beefcake. And I spent a ton of time working to do it. And I had zero idea. I try to put myself in that shoe, why that wasn't translating to field. I thought the higher your squat was, the more you increase that, the better you were on the field. And I stepped on the field day one and it was a completely different speed. I had no idea what was happening. And I strictly remember this. There was another fullback that came in with me as a freshman who told me he didn't train all summer. He's like, yeah, I ran a couple routes. I did all this. And in my had ego way. And I was super ego filled in the moment. I was like, fuck this dude. Like, I'm going to ball out. Like, I'm going to crush this guy. Spent this entire time. We get on the field. He can play football. I can't. I'm horrible. I can't do anything. It's a different processing speed. In high school, you're able to get away with it. You're just able to clamp up and do it. And I couldn't move. I'm watching people around me. I'm like, they're able to move ways I can't. They're able to process. There's something deeper here. And that deeperness led me to, all right, so it's not Olympic lifts. I'm really good at Olympic lifts. It's not Olympic lifts. What is it? So that led me into, okay, it's DeFranco. And I got super obsessed with DeFranco. And that helped, like it took kind of that next step of just like straight Olympic lifts to the DeFranco method of like conjugate style, just moving, jumping. Like I wasn't even jumping. I wasn't doing any vertical jumps, broad jumps, sprints. We weren't doing any of that. I was just trying to load up the bar as much as humanly possible. And that helped. Like it helped a ton. I was able to just move and even feel better, not feel as beat up. And my lifts went down, but like my movement went up. I spent more time practicing football. I was on the field without feeling like butt cheeks all the time because I was sending 300-pound cleans every day before practice, like feeling like butt. So I'd walk onto the field and I'd feel better. I'd move better. I'm like, oh, like that's the answer. DeFranco's the answer. But yet I would still watch people that I know I trained harder than, I know I thought I trained smarter than, and they would move. They would see the game slower than me. Like I'd look at him, like defensive lineman next to me. I'm like, he is seeing the game in a way I'm not seeing the game. Like he's moving in a way that I can't move. And that just kind of continually led me down different pathways. I went triphasic. I'm like, okay, there's something here with triphasic. And I just continued to dive down these methods into where I am now, which is like, nobody has the answers method, like you're stealing from everybody. And like everything is complete. My programs is completely shift from where I was to where I am today. But it's like continuing to dig deeper and realizing there's something else there rather than the barbell. And that like journey kind of led to that moment.
So I usually ask, did you ever have a point in your career where you have a paradigm shifting moment? Pretty clearly as an athlete, you did a couple of times. And it seems like you always looked for the answers in the weight room. And you might not have found the end answer to what you're doing now, maybe in the weight room, but more from looking, elsewhere, looking at skill development, spending more time on the field and your skills. Did you ever have similar moments now that you've been a coach for a while with your coaching style and how you practice strength and conditioning with the athletes that you're given the responsibility of improving and making better?
Yeah, I think the podcast honestly like has been the biggest thing for that. Like I'll have people like Rafe Kelly or Michael Zwayful and Nick DeMarco. Like I have these people on the podcast. I'm talking, I'm like, holy shit, like holy shit, there's another piece. Like there's another piece. And I think COVID was a huge benefit for me because it's like, all right, before COVID hit, it was like, all right, I knew the weight room wasn't the answer, but I'm still stuck in the weight room. Like I'm still doing everything that I do in the weight room because it's where I was comfortable. It's where my job was. It's what I was doing. We were still doing some of the small sided game stuff, but it was like the weight room's still my answer. And COVID is like, all right, the weight room is not your answer anymore. You are not going in the weight room because everything is locked down. How do you figure this out? What do you do with body weight? Like, how do you work with that? How does that make you feel? What's your strength levels like? Like how does that go? So the COVID time was huge for me because like I started experimenting with a bunch of stuff, doing a ton of ISOs, did a ton of ISOs. My vert went way up, but I was able to dunk. I was able to do things I wasn't able to do before. I was like, okay, like that's totally different. That's totally new. How do we play with that? How do we work with that? Dr. Tommy John's talking about some of these leveling up processes, some of these smaller pieces. All right, how do we implement that? How do we try that? How's it working with 100 athletes when I implement it with the football team? Okay, they like that. It's working. It's having good results. And continuing to develop these thought processes. And one of the cool things, because it's like the big fear piece, is like, all right, you don't have the barbell. Like, what happens? What happens? Like, are you going to lose it? Are you going to lose who you are? I came back after that COVID, after doing all these ISO stuffs, and I PR'd in a bunch of stuff. And a lot of that to me was like, I loved the weight room again, because I took a huge break from it. Before, I was just kind of going through the motions. I was doing it, but I had been there for so long. Now you took this huge break, and now you come back and you're PRing and you have that fire for it again. And that's where it got me thinking of the psychological side of things. It's like, all right, the intention, like what does intention mean for your lifts? How does belief system in what you're doing, how does like passion and love for what you're doing, how does that manifest itself physically? And that was all happened because I was forced out of the weight room. I was forced because of lockdown to, I had this basketball, there's this park that I worked in, my hometown park. It was like, there's a swing set, a pull-up, there's a basketball hoop. And that's where I really decided, all right, I'm going to learn how to dunk because I got this time, So like you're forced out of something into a new environment, which I think is where it's like the Phoenix. It's like the old you has to die to have the rebirth. And it was the forced death of the weight room Coach Jochum into non-weight room Coach Jochum, and then back into the weight room. And how do you implement these new things? And I think that's where that evolution needs to continue to happen with everybody, with all of us, forcing ourselves into the new environments.
You said something there that kind of made me think. I wanted to learn how to dunk. So the skill of dunking, you had to learn that skill. Most people say like, oh, I have to get my vert up to be able to dunk. I have to do this to be able to dunk. But it's a learning process. In that college strength and conditioning environment, what are some things that you do to encourage that learning process with the athletes that you're in front of? Because it's not just, checking off this box, it's a process of learning. Yeah, what are some things that helped you learn how to dunk, and what are some things that you help athletes learn how to do?
And that was the biggest, like one of the biggest shifts too, is like, what's my goal as a strength coach? And when I really laid that out on one of these spirit walks that we talked about to start the podcast, it was, create learners and lovers of movement and skill acquisition. You know, they got to be able to learn and love movement and what their bodies can do. And when you can do that, when they love what they do and they love learning, you can get them obsessed with something. And that obsession piece is what's so powerful. You look at all the greats in the world. I look at anything great, in quotations, great, like great for me, anything great that I've done personally. It's because I was completely and stupidly and utterly obsessed with it. It had nothing to do with the sets and reps. It had nothing to do with there's so many dumb things I did in the process of some of these things, but it's because I was obsessed. I got the reps in. And the only way you get those reps in, the only way you do the work, the only way you do any of that, you can't whip somebody into doing that. Like, you're going to get 40% of the way by whipping and forcing and yelling. The way to do it is get them obsessed. When somebody is obsessed, they'll spend hours doing it. I like Coach Waitwell's talk about like video games. Like, coaches talk about athletes not being passionate. Coaches talk about athletes being lazy. It's like bullshit. Watch them play a video game. They'll obsess over a video game for 12 hours straight. Everybody has that obsession piece. Everybody's obsessed with something. How can we funnel that into what we want to work with? And that is the weight room. That is the skill acquisition on the field. So that's something that I love doing, is getting them obsessed with something. And that starts with a lot of the roles, a lot of the body weight movement stuff. Not being able to do like that. We have an athlete that we were able to get him to do a front flip. And when he got that front flip, man, like, it's like, oh shit, what else can I do? Oh shit, my body was able to do that. How can I direct this into that direction? And when you get that flick and that fire lit in their head of what their body's able to do, now you bring that onto the football field. Now you bring that onto the court, like whatever it is. But now they're obsessed with, what can I do? Can I make that shot? Can I do that move? But until that's there, until that one, it's the accepting of failure and like exploration piece. Until that's there, they're not obsessed with it. They're not obsessed with pushing the boundaries, and you need to be obsessed with pushing the boundaries. Otherwise, none of it really matters.
Talk a little bit more about that use of the crawls and the gymnastics. And it's so cool to see that stuff when you post it. I've got an athlete who I've been working with for a while now, who I kind of use as my guinea pig for that kind of stuff. I was real into gymnastics growing up. So like the flips and the rolls and stuff, it kind of in my wheelhouse. And now I get to go home and see my niece do it, and she crushes it. She's more athletic now than a lot of the college kids I work with, because they can't do some of these things. Where did this, the kind of interest in gymnastics and training, when did that enter your life? When did you start using that? And what are some of the cool stuff? Like you said, the front flip, what are some of the other cool things that you've seen your athletes be able to do when they focus on that gymnastics piece?
Yeah. So, I think it originally started, I was with the football team. The football team was good friends with the dance team in college. And this is where like the original interest in it popped up. Is I would see these girls who I know can like squat like 20 pounds, do like insane flips, and like an aerial is something that I think it's the coolest fucking thing in the world. It's like the amount of like pop and snap and rhythmic that it looked. I've always just thought like, that is so cool. Like, what is that? And I was never able to do any of it. Like that herniated disc, like it went away and I was able to move, but I was never able to really, I was so stiff. Even when my senior year, when I moved better than before, it was still stiff. Like once a month, once every other month, I would get to the point of like, there'd be days where I couldn't get out of bed still, like where it would just lock up, and I was just like, all right, just like, it's just part of my back. It's just part of what it is. And couldn't get out of bed as a 20-year-old, like how crazy is that? And that's where I started during that COVID time. Like, all right, let's start to attack some of this. Let's start to bend the spine, like a slow-mo roll. We're going to get both of our shoulder blades to touch, our neck underneath us, and we're starting to bend the spine. And I had zero ability to do that the first time, like zero. I couldn't forward roll. I had never done it in my life. The first time I tried to forward roll, I ate shit so hard. A forward somersault, like how crazy is that you can't humanly do that? And we have so many athletes that the first time we do, they can't. They've never done it before. A cartwheel, never done it before. Right. None of this stuff, around up, none of it. And I was in the same thing. So that's where I personally know of like, okay, I'm able to get myself to do a roll. Wow, that kind of feels really, really good. And being able to bend my spine, how far can I push that? How much can I do with this? And continuing to build some of these things out for myself was really big during COVID, and kind of experimenting with, all right, we can get the spine to move in all these different ways. We can bend, we can sigh, like you can crawl. And that's like one of the things with the crawls is like, we're even bastardizing crawls. It's like we put the cone on the back, and not for like a target, but we put the cone on the back so everything stays tight. It's like, all right, that's another squat, like it's already staying tight in a squat. Let's let those hips move and that lower spine move, like I want it rhythmic, I want it relaxed, I want them moving like humans should move. And once we get that understanding of that's what a human could look like, and you watch gymnastics and it's like it's art. Their movement is art. How, like, it's not powerful and stiff, it's like art. And then you watch a really good running back move, you watch them juke, and it's the same movement, it's the same relaxation, like everything's synced up, and it's not power, like it's not slamming everything into the ground, which is like what something like a big defensive lineman like myself would do. Even big good pass rushers, it's elegant. And it's like the easiest thing that I saw that mimic that elegance, that rhythmic movement, that relaxation, that times up, was gymnastics, and watching that and getting athletes good at understanding, all right, this is your time to flow. This is for the brace. Like, you have that brace part in the weight room, but this is your time to flow, to move your spine, to move your body, to understand that relaxation. And once they get that click move, that the click in their head, they're like, oh, it's not all force. Like we always tell people, more into the ground, harder. And it's like, even for myself, it's continually like when I'm trying to do an aerial, I'm trying to do the flip, I catch myself, I'm like trying to slam, like I'm trying to do more into the ground. It's like, relax, like let your body do what it's supposed to do. And once you feel that, it's really hard to go back from it. Once you feel like how it can happen just rhythmically, relaxed, and letting your body do what it's supposed to do, rather than a coach has told you for so many years to slam into the ground and you're trying to force it.
Yeah. And you want to be humbled real quick. Go ahead and walk on your hands and feet for 40 yards, 60 yards, 80 yards. We did a 5-minute bear crawl, a couple of us the other day. And it was, and I think I tagged you on it on Instagram, and it's just horrible. It's so hard. Like you said, legs are beat up, arms are beat up, and that's we spend and I believe it's Tommy John who said we spent a year and a half trying to figure out how to go from laying on the ground to crawling as children. But as soon as we figure that out, we completely stop doing it. And it's such an incredible exercise. And you're right. We do see a lot of different ways where people try to get themselves around being athletic and trying to use it as a breathing and a bracing exercise. And we can just let kids race, or let somebody race 40 yards down and back, or throw in some long distance bear crawls before or at the very end of training, and just kind of see how it changes them. And that's one of the things. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I branch off? Because I like that what you brought up there, because I'm a woo-woo thinker, and I don't want like the meatheads to instantly like turn off crawls and rolls because I'm talking about the relax, like what the fuck is he talking relaxation, like there's data behind it. Like you said, like it's brutal, like it's going to build your hands, it's going to build your wrists, it's going to build your shoulders, and also spine health. Like if you work with American football guys, their background is going to be a ton of bracing, a ton of like slamming. And I guarantee American football coaches that are listening, you have guys on your team that have lower back problems. You have guys on your team that do not feel good in these movements. Have them crawl, have them roll. And I have yet to see it not like naturally fix itself, but pretty naturally, like that pain goes away. I'm telling you, I herniated a disc in my back when I was 16. I started doing crawls and rolls when I was 22, 23. Ever since then, ever since I've done that movement practice, I keep in my barbell lifts. I do everything that I've basically done before other than clean and jerks. And my back pain is completely gone. I've yet to wake up with any of the herniated disc. Anybody that has the herniated disc, the mornings where you can't get out, you physically cannot get out of bed. It's like the scary thought of you have to roll. I had to get onto my knees. I had to do like a little cat cow basically to get some movement, get onto my feet, grab the wall. I have yet to have that, so it's taking it out of the woo-woo world. Physically, it's going to build your body, and it's going to help your body much more than you think watching these movements. And the only way I can tell you to like experience it is to try it.
Yes, absolutely. Try it. Yeah, give it a shot. James, I had you crawl 80, 100 yards or something the other day.
Yeah, it was 120. It was great.
Yeah, 120. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Were you just going to say something?
So, I mean, I think that, we tend to quickly discount things that go against what we've been taught and indoctrinated on. So what we've been taught, if we study this in college, as an exercise science major, like we've been taught such a different route. We've been indoctrinated on, like, we've been prevented to explore. Like we're almost like trying not to explore what's new, or not even new, but like what feels natural. Outside of the crawls and in the the crawls and the rolls, I've seen you do some different like jumping patterns, and it might have been in a warm up where there's just like 9 different directions that you're jumping back and then jumping back onto a box, jumping back and jumping back onto a box. Like that in itself is just like exploring your own movement in the warm up, in being able to feel that. How do you talk to your athletes to get them to start thinking, explore my body's movements? How do you communicate that message so that you get this football player to be able to buy into that concept? Because it's not just the coaches, it's a lot of the athletes, because they have access to Instagram, that they can see whoever doing a massive back squat and be like, that's what I need to do. How can you open up that conversation just to say, hey, let's explore our body and understand what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think that's a couple parts. I really like that question because it is something that you kind of have to focus on, but it happens quicker with the athletes that are experiencing it than you think. But one of the things I really like to do is show them pictures of the sport, show them videos of the sport. And like you never have an athlete ask for jump mechanics, like you never have them, but they will ask for like why aren't we squatting more? Why aren't we doing that type of stuff more? But you'll show them the movements, and it's like the shortstop that is like diving for a ball and is like bent over, the wide receiver that is extended and in this position, even like Walter Payton, I think it's Walter Payton, that has he has that like ankle cut, like the typical like picture everybody uses, like why you should do ankle mobility. But you see that picture and it's a super long lunge position, and you're looking at all that you're showing them, and it's like, all right, these are all of the positions. Like you can't try to train all of these positions, like you're not gonna pick every single specific position. You want to give them the movement options and movement tools throughout it. So we're just going to expose them to a shitload of stuff. The 8 vector jumps, like we're going to expose that ankle to as many different angles as we can. We're going to, even like a lot of the squat patterns or RDL patterns, we'll do squat variations, like even in the barbell lifts that we do, we'll front squat, we'll back squat, we'll heel elevated, we'll use a ton of different specialty bars. And all we're trying to do is expose them to as many different movement and force production patterns as possible. So when they get on the field, nothing is really new. Like it's not, all right, I got my athlete squat pattern up 40 pounds. And I talked about this, I think, in a Q&A yesterday, but it's like, the only reason us strength coaches like doing that is because we like showing other people that we got that squat pattern up. Is it making them strong on the field? We have no idea. Like we're not asking those questions. We're just seeing his squat pattern was 300 and now his back squat's 340 after 12 weeks of doing it. Look how good I am. It's like, all right, is he producing more force on the field? Is he able to do it in a pass rush position, which is his main job? Like we're not asking any of these questions. We're just doing simple A to B metrics, which in a complex sport like football and any team sport activity, it's not that easy to do. But we don't want to dive into the unknown. We don't want to dive into the fringe. We just want to be like, all right, it's simple. It's really not simple. So if we don't have the answers, and I know we don't have the answers, and I talked about this on Joel's podcast yesterday, if we had the answers, all 3 of us right now, we had the blueprint. We could take any athlete that we wanted and make them a world champion. Coaches that work with Olympians, like you're working with an Olympian, not even they can guarantee he's going to win gold. Like they have the best in the world, the closest to saying you have the answer, and not even they can guarantee he's going to win. But yet we feel like we have the answers. We don't. We can't create a world champion out of nowhere. We have no idea what that comes from. We have some metrics. We have some things that we want to add up to. We have some things that we're like, but we feel like we're so much closer. We feel like we have the answers so much more than we do. So if we don't have the answers, why are we not exploring? Why are we not diving deeper in this? And that's not to say throw everything out. That's not what I'm saying. It's not what we do. Like, I love making the joke of like all we do is play. I love posting that on Instagram because we have so many meatheads that get so pissed off. Like all they do is fucking roll. All they do is just like they're just playing around. They're just goofing around. Like you need to work. It's like I posted a guy doing a 450-pound Bulgarian yesterday. It's like, all right, like is that enough work for you? Like is that enough force production for you. Like you still get in all of these pieces. There's just there's ways to explore the fringe without throwing out your foundational piece, but we can't just sit there and pretend like everything we have in stone, like our 10 commandments of strength conditioning. We don't have the answers. We know we don't have the answers. Let's continue to explore with our athletes and expose them to all of these different movement patterns that we have.
We were just talking about the 450-pound Bulgarian with chains right before you got on. That was a pretty gnarly to see. How do you take what you're doing at your facility and blend it with what you're doing in the college setting? Because anybody who follows you sees this, and if you don't yet, hopefully you do after this conversation. We see what you're doing at the gym, and then we see that you're in the college setting, and both James and I are in the college setting as well. How do you kind of blend those two? Because it seems like what ADs want to see is you go in and you say, hey, this is the program. We focus on single leg strength and Olympic movement, and we'll get your athletes in. We're going to try to reduce the injuries, the things like that, and then you get in the gym and they get an hour and they train and you get out. How do you kind of blend what you're doing at the facility and what you're doing at the school?
I want to say it's a blend. I would say it's just the same, like I just grab, like, it's what I believe in. And then I sit, and every time we have a staff meeting before we go, and I'm blessed to have that background in backing in what we do. But every staff meeting at the start of the year, I give them basically this talk, there are no experts talk. Look at all these positions. Look at what we're seeing in film. I show them a bunch of tape. I show them a bunch of tape of our athletes too, which is really powerful. Rather than showing them an NFL guy, show them actual tape of what you're seeing on the field. All right, we're watching this. Here's the data we have. Here's what we're talking about. This is why we believe in what we believe in. This is what we're going to do. And a really cool story with that is something that helped us is we were doing flying 10s, and we had this guy run a flying 10, and he's the fastest on the team. The coaches didn't get that data, but the coaches came up to me after one of the practices and said, hey, this guy, he's a safety. He's really slow. Like he's slow. He's slow on the field. Could you work some extra speed with him? Like, can you do some speed? Like, they wanted me to get him faster. They thought he had potential. There's like, he's slow. We need to build that up. He has a chance to play for us. And I'm like, without that data of the flying 10s, I would be like, yeah, of course. Like, let's go sprint him. Like, we can do that all day. Right. But it's like, I have the data here consistently in a flying 10, in a start 10. We had a 10-meter or a 10-yard start and a 20-yard start. All three of them, he is the fastest on the team, not top 10. He was the fastest on the team. And the coaches, and it's just crazy that I added up that way. But the coaches saw him as slow. And it's like, all right, that's not speed that's slowing him down. What is it? Let's put him in some of these situations, these game-like scenarios, put him in some of these situations and see what is making him slow. Does he not understand the play? Is that why he's slow? Because he can't sprint, because he has no idea where he's supposed to go? Possibly. But now we can have that discussion, and we can talk about why we do what we do, why we expose him to these movement patterns. Maybe he doesn't feel comfortable changing directions, that's going to be different than just sprinting him, but without experiencing some of these things, and without putting, like, a lot of the others, like putting him in 1v1 situations. All right, he excels in 1v1 situations. Let's put him in a 2v2 situation. We watch his, like, oh, that's where he's struggling. He slows down a ton when there's 3 other people on the court with him, and he can't process that much information. So now we know it's a processing error, but we're able to have these conversations with the coach to make it make sense to them of what you're seeing. Like, I love getting that information from you, but let's break down what that actually means. What is slow? It's not sprinting speed, because without that, the AD is going to come to you and be like, he's slow, let's get him faster. And not the AD, but the head coach is going to come to you, he's slow, let's get him faster. You're just going to say as a strength coach, okay, sure, let's get him faster, let's sprint him, because it's easy, it's in the metrics, it looks pretty, it's ordered. But it's like, that's not what's happening, and it's not going to lead to wins on Saturday, and as long as you're getting closer to getting wins on Saturday, which we can't guarantee either, but at least we're making progress towards that. Usually the coaches and the players start to understand this is why we're doing what we're doing, and you don't have to fake like the coach wants you to do this, but you believe in that, so you're just going to do what the coach says.
Yeah, there does seem like there is some of that. I want to define a couple words. There are some things where if we dig into your social media and we hear what you're talking about here, there are some things that stick out and really resonate with me. And I think some of these things can really resonate with some other people. So I got a couple kind of words and terms that I want you to define for us. And then we'll kind of go off of these descriptions for the next couple questions. So keep chopping wood. Keep chopping wood is something you say at the end of every podcast, and what you say at the end of all your captions. What does that mean to you when you say keep chopping wood? What do you want people to take from that?
Yeah, so the story behind keep chopping wood, and I think it's important to tell the story so it gives it meaning. It's not some bullshit motivation like thing, which I'm really, really not into. I think that's more the like meathead, like you're just saying shit to say shit. So my freshman year, I told you how I struggled on the football field, and I had done all this work, and I was very attached to my football identity, and I was crushed. Like I was a seventh string fullback. I was coming in thinking I was going to start, and I ended up being a seventh string fullback. I was injured. I was not having a good time. I went to a college where I knew nobody. I had zero friends. And I texted my head coach or my high school head coach. And I said, hey coach, just want you to know that I'm quitting football. I'm going to transfer. Basically I was going to take the easy route. Like I was going to go back home to a college next to my hometown where my high school girlfriend was, like all the easy things, all the comfortable things that I wanted to do. I texted my head coach, high school head coach, that I'm like, hey, I'm going to quit. I'm going to do this. I just want to let you know, thankful for you and like leading up to this moment. And all he texted back, and I was on my way to go talk to the football coach, the head football coach at St. Thomas, Coach Caruso, who completely changed my life. Like amazing man. I was on my way up to talk to him, sent that text, just thought I was like, wanted to thank him before I did it. He texted me before I get to the office as I'm climbing the stairs. That's not who you are. Keep chopping wood. And that's all he texted me. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I got to think about this a little bit more. And that kind of led into the whole process of like, what is keep chopping wood? Like the continual process of showing up every single day to swing the axe at the tree. And it's not going to fall. But your job that day is not to make the tree fall. It's to swing the axe and to continually do that. And how does swinging that axe every single day, how much can that lead to? All right, you get the one tree to fall, you get the obstacle that's in your way to fall. Do you sit there and pat yourself on the back, or do you pick up the axe and swing again? All right, you cleared the entire forest of where you're at. Now, what do you do with that? What do you do? Continue? You just like pat yourself on the back? Do you be all right with that? Are you continuing to pick up the axe and swing? And that's the entire process. Like every single day, your job is to pick up the axe and swing, to continually chop wood every single day. And how much growth I've had from like making that decision, like to not quit football, to be an All-American my senior year, which the award doesn't mean as much. It's the process of like, you were shit, like you were horrible, you were ready to quit, you're ready to make every easy decision in your life because you were just setting down the axe. And all somebody had to do is tell you to pick up the axe and then see where it took off. And that's led to Jochum strength. That's led to everything that I've done from one text. And the crazy part, and this is what really blows my mind. I had my high school head coach on the podcast and I told him that story and he doesn't remember sending the text, So like, think about your impact you have every single day having conversations with people, like he doesn't remember sending a text that completely changed the outcome of my life and what I'm doing. He doesn't remember sending it. He just did it. And you have those conversations with people every single day. You have the conversations with people every single day to telling them to pick up the axe. You have the choice to tell them to pick up the axe. You have the choice to not say anything and they can set it down and go down their smiling path, and you have no idea what you said to somebody. And it was fucking blew my mind because yesterday I had a similar situation. A kid came up to me at St. Thomas. I hope maybe he's listening, but I had no idea who he was. Zero idea. Didn't recognize his face. I don't remember him. He came up to me and he said, Coach Jochum, thank you. You completely changed my life. You told me to read these 2 books 3 years ago when I was in the gutter. We talked about it. I read those 3 books and it completely changed. It's like, I don't remember. I didn't know. I felt like a fucking dick because I didn't know his name. I didn't remember the conversation. But then I like process. I'm like, that's the same thing like Coach Herm did to me, So you have these conversations, you have these pieces all over every single day that you don't even think about. And that's why keep chopping wood is our mantra. Continue to do it yourself. Continue to pick up the axe every single day yourself, but also understand what impact you have on the world. Like you can go 2 ways. You can tell people to pick up that axe. You can tell people to motivate them. You can do whatever you want. and they can completely change your life, or you can not say anything. So that's kind of the mantra behind the keep chopping wood. Like, it's not the motivational kind of BS of like, just grind. It's like, no, dude, like that, like live it yourself and then understand the impact that your life has on other people.
Yeah, man, so powerful. How about go without? A part you left out of your story was the fact that you were sleeping on the floor in your gym for a couple years. And another super inspiring story there. But you, I heard you on a podcast where you said go without. You said go without to go within. And I really want to hear you kind of talk about that, because I think that's something that's really important for people listening to understand.
Yeah, and that, like you said, like I was sleeping on my gym floor for 3 years after college. So opened up the gym. I had zero money, like $0. And by zero, I mean negative 30,000 because of student loans, you know, and we're working on this strength conditioning budget, you know, like you're not getting paid anything and you just opened up your gym. You have no money. I didn't have a place to stay. And so I slept at St. Thomas for a year. I befriended the janitor there, and he let me sleep in one of these defensive meeting rooms. And I had a blanket and a fan, and I brought everywhere that I went, and kept it in one of the little closets there. And then that janitor left, and the new janitor came in and said, "Hey, dude, like, you can't stay here." And I couldn't convince him not to tell anybody, so I had to go stay at my gym, which is a whole kind of crapshoot in itself. I didn't have a kitchen. I didn't have a kitchen anywhere, so it's like trying to find out how to, like, you want to talk about nutrition and like figuring out how to do like microwavable meals. Like, that was a wild 3 years. Probably not the best for me, but setting that up. And it just got me thinking, is like, how much crap can you eliminate in your life? You know, like, how close to the root can you get? And I'm saying this like I was sleeping on my, like, even me in my situation was extremely blessed. Like, I had still a roof over my head. I had a place to stay. Like, I'm staying at the gym, I'm staying at the school. I had a place to shower. Like, it was still extremely blessed compared to so many people. Like, my grandpa, his parents died when he was like 7 years old, and he had to take over a farm, and like, he had to keep the roof over his head, you know, like, that's a whole different level. And he's building all of this up to give his kid a chance. And my dad and parents lived in, me, myself, but they lived in a trailer house. So like, he went from having to take over a farm at like 7 years old with all of his brothers and keeping the roof over his head, barely over his head, to give his kid an opportunity to have a better life. And the better life was living in a trailer home, you know. And then my dad and my parents lived in a trailer home and made those sacrifices to give us an opportunity, you know. So like, you have all of these things that are lining up, and the sacrifices that are made. And to me, it was like, what can I go without? How can I eliminate some of the bull crap from my life and basically stop being so soft? Like, everybody, we distract ourselves, and we feel like we need something. And a lot of it, and you read a lot of like philosophy books and read a lot of the great thinkers, and it's almost all distractions. Like, we don't want to be, and you'll notice it in meditation with athletes too. Like, you'll have them practice stillness, practice meditation, watch them. They can't sit still. You have them shut their eyes and lay up. They can't, they have to itch, they have to move, they have to twitch, anything to stay silent with their own brain, they're going to do. And it's like, wow, like, what is happening throughout our everyday life then? Like, we can't sit alone when it's dead silent and there are no distractions. Imagine when there are distractions. Imagine when everything around us is telling us we need that, we need that, we need this, we need to, like, who are you? Do you know that? Like, do you know that answer? Have you sat with yourself? Have you sat with your emotions? Have you sat without anything in your life and just been like, are you happy? Can you be happy by yourself? Can you be free by yourself without having all these attachments? And that was something that was sitting, like, laying on the ground. And obviously the goal is to get off the ground at the gym. It's like, how much crap can I eliminate? Like, how can I go without, like, eliminate stuff in my life to go within my own body and be happy? Like, if I can be happy and free and know myself in the moment without anything, then I can build up from that moment. But if you don't ever get to that moment, if you don't understand who you are, everything else in your life is going to be a distraction. All right, new girlfriend, new job, whatever it is, like, you're just trying to, like, you don't want to be alone. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to, like, and I watch a lot of my friends too, like, at parties and social gatherings. It's like, they need to talk to people. they need to say something. They need to like do, like they can't just sit. And that's I think it's a big piece of being able to sit, observe your own thoughts, figure out who you really are and why you're on this planet. And the only way to do that is to eliminate a lot of the distractions in your life.
Most people don't even want to intern, and Austin is sleeping on the floor of his own gym. And you could have every day gotten up and gone to the training session and talked about how you were sleeping on the floor. But Jochum strength doesn't become Jochum strength if you have those conversations with athletes, right? If you say, hey man, thanks for showing up at 6. I was just asleep on the floor. You know, I would imagine how those conversations went, but I'm sure you wouldn't be here right now if that's kind of the perspective you took.
Yeah. And that's like, you want to lead people. And then it's not like, but it's like, you're leading these people, you know, like they're coming to you because they feel like you're somebody to believe in and somebody that could spark a light in their life. And you're going to sit there and complain about it. It's like, and again, I bring that back to like, what the fuck am I complaining about? I have a spot to sleep, you know? And like, that's where I don't, like, when I didn't tell the story of like, I get it's part of my story, but it's also like, it's not in a sense that big of a deal, because it's like I still had a spot. I was still extremely blessed compared to so many people on planet Earth. And then you think about this too. This is what really messes me up. Think about history, like the time that we're at in history, like this little sliver of history. Anybody 200 years ago, let's say the most like the wealthiest person 200 years ago would have been envious of what I had access to, being homeless in quotations, you know, like, so put all those things in perspective. And it's like, your life's not that hard, man. Like the problems that you feel like you have are not that real. And that's like, what I'm going to sit here and complain about that to my athletes that are coming to me that want me to change their life. Yeah. Like Jochum strength doesn't happen if you sit there. Nothing happens if you sit there and tell people how tough your life is. One, nobody cares. I promise you, your best friend, your mom, your dad, they do not care. They'll comfort you if like, whatever, like they don't care. Like they understand, you understand, everybody understands in the bottom of your heart that your life is not that hard. Like even the worst situation, floods happen, everything happens, but you need to be able to understand and put yourself in perspective of, I'm extremely blessed regardless of my sufferings. I'm extremely blessed regardless of the cross that is like on me to bear. Let's just bear it. Like, let's accept that fact. Let's bear it and let's move forward.
I think a lot of people will hear that and then say, yes, but we're in a yes, but society. But that message, if you just let it sit and think about it, and if you're listening to this, play that again and listen to it again. And don't let your mind go to that place where you say, yes, but. Take that message and listen to it, hear it again, maybe play it back twice, but don't let yourself say yes, but.
And that's, so I just read the book Awareness, or not just read, when I read the book Awareness, and it is a book that messed me up mentally because it's pretty much catching your bullshit thoughts like that. And it's something you train. It's something that I bless. Like I'm so blessed. I had a grandpa, and more so my dad. My mom was a little bit nicer, a little bit like more comforting on that side, but she didn't let us get away with that BS either. But it's thoughts that you catch yourself, and it's repeatedly trained in your brain. Like, yes, but like, and I'll catch myself. It doesn't go away ever. It's human nature to say yes, but like even in these like, yes, but yeah, yes, but yes, but it's like, catch yourself. That's all you have to do. Because that once you start to catch yourself, you're like, oh, I'm being a little bitch right now. Oh, like I'm being soft right now. Oh, I am extremely entitled and I'm being mad about that, you know, like, oh, that guy cut me off. Like, come on, man. Like, and the whole point is like, goes back to the meditation piece, goes back to understanding yourself. When you're so distracted and you have so many emails in your brain at all times, this, that, you don't catch yourself in those moments because you don't even notice it. You don't even notice you're saying yes, right? You honestly, and like, you just believe it. And that's where it comes back. Like you almost just turn into a robot or an animal, however you want to look at it. You're just automated responses to things. Yes, but you know, like that automatically happens in your brain. You're not taking the time to think about it, to grab onto it. And you're like, not yes, but holy shit. Like I am entitled. Holy shit. I am blessed. Like, and grabbing onto those things, but you got to eliminate those emails in your brain so you can catch that. You can like, oh, that's where my brain's going right there. That's the old me. That's the me that feels sorry for myself and then pushes that on to everybody else around me. Nope. Like we're gonna cut that off. And you do that slowly every single day by catching those thoughts and paying attention to them and going to walk about them. Like that's why spirit walks are so important. Like go walk about it and think about it. Why do you think that way? Why do you continually have these thoughts pop up? Who's ingrained that in your head? Do you have to be that person that has ingrained it in your head? Like, are those thoughts your own, or are they your teachers? Are they your own, or are they the leaders in your life, your parents in your life that have told you these things over and over and over again? Which they probably are if you haven't dug deep into them. So like pay attention to those things and sit there and know yourself about it.
But you're not saying go on a walk and take pictures with your Apple iPhone 13X Plus, right? You're talking about get away from technology, go walk with your thoughts.
Go walk with your thoughts, go sit somewhere. Novell talks about this. It's like a 60-day meditation. And he's like, even the meditation apps are bullshit. He's like, even those are a distraction, you know? And I do use meditation apps. I do feel like one part I like learning, like I'm like, okay, this is what they're trying to take us through. But I do also like them for some of the guided stuff. But he's like, but when he brings that up, it's like, it's true. Like even those are bullshit. He's like, go sit somewhere for 60 minutes for 60 days. Maybe it's a month, either one, like his meditation thing about it, and just sit. You can't move. You can't do anything. You're sitting there unlocking the emails in your brain for 60 minutes. Like go do that. Go sit somewhere for 60 minutes without a phone, without distractions, in nature. Watch yourself. Watch how hard that is. Like you think working out is hard. And that's the thing, is like, we could go on a whole rant about training is hard, like lifting it. It's like bullshit, man. Like there's so many things that are harder in life, but you think working out is hard. You talk about training, you talk about wanting to level up, go sit somewhere for 60 minutes, unlock your own brain. You'll find out how hard that is compared to lifting a barbell, which is again another distraction for things in your life.
And a little more to the physical, because I don't want to take too much of your time, man. I got so many things I want to talk about. So we'll kind of wrap up with some of these definitions and then get into some kind of rapid fire questions. But Jochum strength and building armor. So cool what you're doing out there. So cool how you define what Jochum strength is. Can you give our listeners an idea of what Jochum strength and building the armor is?
Yeah, for sure. And I got plenty of time too. So don't feel like you have to rush anything. Okay. I know like podcasts, like you get a gas down and you're like, fuck, like I'm trying to speed up. You don't have to rush anything. Whenever you guys are ready to done listening to me rant, I'm ready for it. But okay, awesome. Building armor is something that we do. You talk about the big pieces. Like we want to work on some of these small pieces. And we talk about the psychological side of training too. It's like, all right, so when I look at programming, when I look at physically programming a workout for an athlete, I look at it in the psychological sense. It's like, I want to bring them in and get them into a flow state, get them into laughing, having fun. And you look at some of the studies there, and it's like when they're laughing, having fun, they have passion and love for what they're doing. Again, that goes back to the obsession piece, but the skill retention is going to be so much higher in that flow state, which is exactly what we want to do. Whether it's lifting a bar, but whatever you want to work on that day, that skill retention is something that you want, like the skill of lifting a barbell. Like that's a skill. You need to pick it up. The skill of sprinting, the skill of jumping. So we want the skill retention to be insanely high. So how do we do that? We get them into a flow state. We start with something that's a fun warm up. And you obviously get the movement variability and all those great pieces in that warm up too. But that's a big part of what we do. We bring them in, we do the fun warm ups, which is the rolls, which is the games that we do, some of the get ups. So you're getting all these pieces, but the big piece is that flow. When you get that flow, we want to funnel that energy that we just created and that skill retention piece into something we want to work on that day. So then it's the barbell lift, the main output. Maybe it's the jump, maybe it's some French contrast, maybe it's some sprints, but we just created all this energy. Let's funnel that into something we really want to work on and attack that day, whatever the main focus of the day is. Then we got this piece, very external based so far in the workout. It's fun. People are laughing. People are lifting a lot of weight, which like athletes love to do. Again, they want to show off. They get the jump as far as they do. They get the sprints as fast. Very exciting, high up. We got this. Now let's bring it internal. All right. So this is the challenge for a lot of first-time athletes is what we do. We just got you all excited. Everybody can do that. I have yet to meet an athlete that can't get super excited to lift a bunch of weight and jump super fast. Now we get into a little bit more of the armor building session and psychologically the internal focus session. and we get into bring it to yourself. All right. So now you got the ISOs, you got the 100 and 1,000 rep schemes that we got going here. And now you're by yourself building your armor of your body. So maybe it's the adductors, maybe it's some of the abduction that we want to work on. I'm trying to some of the calf and the foot stuff. So some of these smaller muscles, that's how I look at the armor, like the little chinks in your armor that we're trying to lift. We work on all the big stuff. And now we're going to go into these smaller pieces that are not sexy. They're not with any teammates that are around you. It's not exciting. You're just by yourself. You're holding an ISO lunge for 5 minutes. You're building up some of these smaller armor based muscles for a long time. You're doing some drop catch stuff from yourself for 100 minutes or for 1,000 reps. And you got to bring it internal. So now you got internal. It's quiet. Nobody else is like talking. It's not exciting. You're holding the ISO. It sucks a lot of the times, but now you're internally based. Can you do that? Can you go from the super high excitement to the super low piece of the training? And then this is the fun part. We'll bring it back out. So we'll bring it back out, and maybe it's simple as arms, because athletes like doing arms. All right. So now it's a little bit more exciting. Or we'll do some partner push. We'll do some building the armor with I posted yesterday of like they're sitting in like a half frog position and the partner's pushing down on their groin and coming back up. So we're building some armor in the groin, but psychologically you want to program that of, and now it's again a community-based exercise. So you just went from internal. Can you bring it back out to external? And now you have to communicate with a partner. You have to talk about the partner, like more pressure, less pressure, or you're just doing arms with the partner. It's just more exciting. You bring that energy up, and then we funnel it back down into another armor-based thing. And then we're going to work on the other aspects. So like, again, a lot of times we'll work inside hip, outside hip, but how can you ebb and flow between those two mindsets? Because in life and in a game, you're going to have to, like, you just scored. Now you're sitting on the bench, your defense is out there, then you got to come back up. So it's super high excitement. Now you're going to come back, process what front are we seeing, what is happening in this play, the linebacker's dropping here, able to bring ourselves back. All right, now we got to go back outside. We have to be excited again. We have to go, like, and that ebb and flow is just something that I noticed in my own training. It's like, we didn't train that, like it was all excitement. It's all here. And then when something bad happens, or you have to come like back into it, we never talked about that. We never focused on that. You never were with your own thoughts. Offense just scores on you. You're down. Like you feel like shit. You're in that moment. It's like quiet. Have you been there before other than on Saturday? Like we've been there in that ISO. All right. I felt that suck before. I've been in this mindset of, okay, I can process it. They scored because I took a wrong step there. It's not because I'm a bad football player. It's because I took a wrong step. Let's get that correct and we can make that fix. So that's how we psychologically. So I took it again psychologically, but that's how we program and we work in that armor-based piece of it. Is we're working the small chinks in that internally focused piece after the outputs. And again, we'll start with 1 minute ISOs and we'll build it all the way up to like 5 to 10 minute ISOs, but really trying to build a superhuman in some of these smaller pieces that usually are not worked at all. And now you can hold something like a Copenhagen for 5 minutes, and the groin issue that you had before is completely gone.
And you've had athletes put up crazy numbers on those ISOs. And we basically, James and I will mess around with them for a couple of weeks. Then we'll challenge our athletes to do them. And in kind of that style, we've never been able to get to the place that you've put some of these athletes in just by doing your style of training. I mean, these low push-up holds for 10, 11 minutes at a time, these lunge ISOs for 5 minutes at a time. Where did that come from? Was that just because this is super hard? We know the internal benefits. We know the external benefits. How did all that come about to where we're getting athletes holding low plank push-ups for 10 and 11 minutes at a time?
I think I'm a weirdo, and then I attract a bunch of weirdo-like athletes. And I mean, you got to be weird, and you got to have some fire in you to be able to hold it. And a lot of it's just environment. Like that's them, man. Like all I do is write the workout up, and I turn the red light on, and I play a little music, or we'll shut off the music, but I talk to them. That's them. I can't force them to do a 10-minute ISO. Yeah. We were just pushing. Like the one day, man, it was the coolest fucking thing ever. Like a month earlier, they had just done their first push-up ISO, and nobody went longer than a minute, and most of them were at 30 seconds. That day, they all just wanted to push, and they were building up like crazy. Like they were continuing to build up, but we had a girl break the other. So there's 2 girls and 2 guys going at the same time. And the girl broke the other girl that was going's original female record at 5 minutes. So she crushed 5 minutes. This is a soccer girl that doesn't do any upper body, you know, like it's just mental. Like, can you be alone with your thoughts? And this is, again, can you be alone with your thoughts? Anybody, it's not strength. I promise you it's not strength. I've seen girls that can't bench 20 pounds, you know, like hold these isos for 3 to 5 minutes. It's mental. Like, can you be alone with your thoughts? Can you be alone with that pain? Can you process it and be all right without freaking out? Dead hangs is another really good example of that. Is like they freak out. As soon as they freak out, as soon as they lose it, it's over. It's like you can hold that forever if you wanted to. It's just in playing that mind game and not in the meathead way. It's just hold that position. So we had that girl go for 5 minutes. Then this other girl that had the record and had just got broke by this girl is continuing to hold it, and she holds it for 7, which is fucking insane. Like, I've done that twice, and every time I'm like, what just happened? Like, you're done, you're shaking. Like, during it, you go through a lot of dark moments in there. And then the 2 guys held it for, I think it was like 10:58 and 11 minutes. Is like wild stuff. They're screaming. You have this just great energy and environment in the room. But when you're holding this, again, it goes back to the ebb and flow. You're holding that push-up ISO. And we talk all the time about the waves. Like the athletes know when the waves are hitting too. So it's like the first minute you can hold, it's all right. Minute to 2 minutes is one of the hardest minutes of all. Like the longest one I've held is 10 minutes. That minute to 2 minutes is one of the hardest minutes for some reason. Like that wherever it goes, like that brain it just crushes you and it tells you to quit. You get to the 2 minute mark and it gets super easy. You know, like that's where I know it. And you talk about energy systems, you're working different energy systems as well. Yes. Yeah, I know. But you get to the 2 minutes and you go from 2 to 4 minutes. 2 to 4 minutes is a breeze. I don't want to say like a super breeze, but it's like, man, you're just chilling. Like, this is awesome. 4 to 5 minutes is another, like, it's beating the shit out of you. Like, you're getting punched. It's like, you suck, quit, just do it. Like, you're almost like, you already did 4 minutes. It's a yeah, but kind of conversations. And it's like one of the only times where you just sit there in your own brain and you hear yourself. Like, that's what I love doing. Like, you hear your brain and it's like, that's not you. You know, like you have these multiple conversations in your head. You have one part of you telling you, it's all right, it's good, like just drop. Like, it's like, whoa, that's like your inner bitch. Like that thing is telling you to, like, what is that? Like, where is that going? And a lot of times, like if you don't have those emails on, and that's why I love ISOs, like for a brain check, it's like, where are you at that day? Because if you don't have your emails unchecked, you're going to listen to that thing right away because you already have this filled brain. And then somebody comes in there and says, hey, just quit, man. Like, it's all right. You can just drop. And you're like, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm just going to drop. And you just think that's your own thought. But when you have emptied out enough emails and you're kind of in that empty brain setting, you hear that in like echoes and you're like, wait a minute, that's not me. That's not me coming up with that thought. That's not my body saying like, I don't have any more. I'm going to break or something like that. That's not what it is. It's just the comfort side of your brain, the yeah, but side of your brain telling you it's all right to quit. Like, you don't have to. And once you understand that it's the conversation going on, then it becomes so much easier because then you just know you're battling that voice and you're not battling your body. Once you get past 7 minutes, then it's kind of battling your body. Then it's like there's a lot of like breaking down. You start the shakes, and when you start the shakes, it's tough to come back from. But then the 7 to 10 minutes part is a lot of like fighting the body. And I'm sure the guy that has the world record, I think he held it for like 18 hours, is like, yeah, you still suck. That's still your yeah, but brain. But that's where my body starts to break down for sure.
Yeah, and he's saying
yeah
at 10 minutes, yeah, nothing. You mentioned the red lights, man, and that's why I popped the red lights on behind us. If you're watching the YouTube version, you can see I got the red lights in the room.
We got some salt lamps over here too.
Yeah, salt lamps, red light. James, you got that's one of those candles back there, right? One of those melting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're locked in.
Melting some wax out here. Oh, yeah.
Tell us, bro, about your use of red lights. You're the only person who I see doing that, and I think it's so cool. And we definitely, not enough people get out in the sun. So how do you take advantage of the red lights in your facility?
Yeah, I want to talk about, like, I stole the idea originally from Grant Fowler, and he really got me peaked on what it was. And then Andrew Huberman got me, and I don't have a personal connection with Andrew Huberman at all. I wish I did, but listening to his talk about light and the importance of light diet really sold me on what it was. And when I visited Dr. Tommy John in Cali in January, I walked into his office And I don't know how to describe it, man. Like I walked in, I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is different. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than telling you to go walk into his office and feel it. And I didn't expect, I honestly, like I'm woo-woo-y, but I'm also skeptical of a lot of stuff. And I was like, okay, this is like, is this bullshit? Like, is this the placebo me thinking about this? I'm like, what is going on? Started thinking about it. I was there for 4 or 5 hours. We were lifting, we were talking, we were doing stuff, but it was a taxing day. And I never once felt tired. I never once felt like drained. I was like, what is happening? And I started thinking, it was like there was no overhead lights. Everything was lit by the salt lamps and red light in there. There was natural sunlight shining through, and there was bunch. So I had the fountain right next to me too, which I stole from his idea too. But it's like he had a bunch of fountains going as a natural sound of water. And I was like, that, like, you lowered the external stimulus of the bright lights, the loud noises, the more distractions. You lowered that external stimulus on your central nervous system, on your body, and it opened it up for so much more room to do what you want your body to do. So you have the benefits of red light with like the light diet. And I would suggest, Andrew Huberman's done like a whole month on light diet. So I would suggest people go listen to that, because he's going to give you the more scientific discussion on it and how to, not just red lights or blue light blockers or anything, but like all of it, like why, when you should get your light, how much, how you go through that. But to me, it's like, how can we lower that external stimulus that is hitting us at all moments so we can get more stimulus in the training session, if that makes sense. So you usually filled up this high in your glass of external stimulus. Like this gap right here is all taken up with light, with noise, with distractions, with your phone. And so you only have like this much more room to go because it's already filled. Like your glass is pretty much already filled with all these distractions. Let's eliminate all this. And now you can go all the way up here with stimulus, like external ISOs, lifting, meditation, whatever you want to work on that day. But you can fill your glass up so much more because you emptied it out of the BS like light stimulus. So that's how I kind of see it. Still working on a lot of the thoughts, but any ISO we've hit for a long, long time has been with just straight red lights, all the lights turned off, and usually the music is turned down really low and it's comforting. That's when the best ISOs are hit. And to me, that's where I'm noticing the stimulus, like you're empty of stimulus and you can fill it up more with other stimulus. And obviously it doesn't matter if you already come in and your glass is overfilling because you had a stressful day and you can't handle that. But if you're just normal baseline, if you can eliminate a lot of the other stimuluses in your life with the loud noise. And Frank, for instance, talks about wearing noise blocking headphones all the time. And he talks about like when he drives, he wears noise, and I don't know how safe that is, but he wears noise blocking. He wears noise blocking headphones when he drives to eliminate like that external noise. And you hear people that spend a lot of time in nature talk about how much of a difference it is when you're in nature and listening to those noises rather than, that's something that's crazy too, is like all of my, when I go on walks, like I'm like, how quiet could it really be? Because even on the walks in the forest, it's like there's a road near enough by that you can hear things, like you can, or the airplanes flying over top. And it's like, we don't think about these stimuluses. We don't think about these stressors adding to our cup at all. We just, because we're so immersed in it, it's like, how can we continually eliminate this stuff? And then even then, how far away are we from what we could be doing if all of that BS was gone? And we could just focus and we could just fill our glass up with training, which is like, if you look at people living in like the Amazon jungle or something like that, that's what they're able to do. And not saying we want to do that. Like, yeah, most of us would die in a second because we have no idea how to handle that. But you think about like, how are they able to handle that insane amount of stress and insane amount of pressure of hunting and doing all these things? It's probably because they eliminated a lot of the low level stressors that continually add up to our bodies.
Yeah, heck yeah. Couple more things, man. Then we'll wrap up here. How long is it going to take, do you think, for colleges and professors to stop teaching 3x10 as the way to go? I know us three are preaching it, and it's just one of those things where when we get interns and we get kids in college who are in exercise science, they always want to talk about sets and reps. And is there ever going to be a time where people look at training like we do, or like some of these other guys do? Or is it always going to be the same thing and you just got to hope to catch yourself with a rogue trainer who reads a lot of books and follows J.K. Rowling around?
Yeah,
What's that going to take?
I don't know, man. Like because every time I think I follow my internal world is like people like Grant Fowler, like Will Rittel, like Jake Tura. Like that's my internal world. So I'm like, wow, we are making insane progress. Like everything is great. We're doing that. And then I'll go to a classroom or I'll there was I can't remember why. I don't know, my gym, it might have been closed for a week, but I went to a YMCA, or even this past weekend, I was back home at a YMCA. And you really get to open your eyes to like it's not changing, like you're changing your internal world, which is I think all you can focus on. Like I'm going to put out this information, you're going to put out this information, we're all going to put out this information and change the world slowly by that moment. But once you like take the blinders off and open up your eyes up to the real world, it's like, oh my god, it's not changing. It's really not. And there's so much money invested in it not changing. And there's so much. I talked about this yesterday on the Q&A too, but it's like we're bowing and we're putting people on thrones, and it just bugs the shit out of me because it's like the people we're putting on thrones, like Coach Boyle, Coach DeFranco, like Louis Simmons, people that have completely changed the field. Why have they changed the field? They've changed it because they've rebelled. They've changed it because they've dove into the fringes. They changed it because they've looked at what we were doing currently and said, it's bullshit. There's deeper answers. There's a deeper understanding. Let me change this. Then, so they changed it. Like they're the pioneers. Then we, instead of like looking at them and be like, all right, they rebelled. They look at this. They critically think. They changed all these things. Instead of understanding that, we're like, they have the answer. So we put them on the throne. It's like no, that's not the point. It's like nobody, we don't have the whole point of the reason they're successful is because they realize a lot of it's bullshit. But now it's your job to look at their stuff. And again, amazing coaches, amazing pioneers in the field. But now it's your job to look at their stuff and be like, that's bullshit. Let's challenge this. Let's look at the fringe pieces there rather than just going back in the cycle of putting them on the throne. And now like that's the only thing we know. It's like, no, like we need to, and that's a societal issue. It's like 3x10s is a societal issue. It's our inability or our want to be led, our want to have comfort, our want to bow down to people, and it's not like we're going to rebel, but it's the societal issue of we want a system, we want comfort, we want rules, but we don't understand who is making those rules. We don't understand who is making these systems. It's other humans. And when you talk to other humans and you talk to these experts and you talk to these pioneers, you realize they're another human. They're making mistakes. They're trying to figure it out. They don't have the answers. If they don't have the answers, why are we pretending like they do? And that's like, it's the God function of creating another human, making another human a God. Like none of us are gods. We don't have the answers. We're not creating anything. We're figuring it out. And we need to get out of that thought process. But to say we're going to do that, man, I don't know. Like again, it's much deeper than 3x10s. I think 3x10s is shows it in the strength conditioning field. But if you go societal, it's very similar. Our world is a 3x10 world, and we need to escape that and dig deeper.
Hey, you're talking to a couple Cleveland boys now. James, born and raised, me kind of imported, and a lot of listeners are big MGK fans.
Oh, love it. I just
saw
an
MGK
concert,
show recently.
Yep.
Yeah. Tell us about that, man. How was that? We're actually going to see him. My girlfriend and I are going to see him in December. He wraps up the show in December here in Cleveland. So we'll go. That'll be my second time seeing him. But what were some of the highlights from that show, man?
Wait, that was your question? I didn't mean to steal your thunder there.
Yeah.
No,
that's I want to wrap up, being Cleveland boys. I want you to tell us about him.
Dude, that was the most insane. His tickets to my Downfall album, the coolest album. I can't tell you how many times I've listened to it. And again, I'm going to get deeper on this conversation than you probably want to go, but it's like, look at somebody that has completely shifted his perspective and approach to a field. Like if you want to take he's an expert of his field of rap. Everybody knew who MGK was expert. He's climbing the ranks of rap, and now he, as an expert and as somebody that's everybody's looking up to, decided to shift into this rock/rap model, and how much that changed his career. Like how much that has opened opportunities to him. So you look at, like, that's how I try to look at these things. Like, watch him, like watch that shift. Like this guy is doing it. You as a strength coach can do it. I promise you. This guy had millions and millions of people watching him. And he said, F that, I'm going to go this because this is what I feel right now. And as strength coaches, we're like, no, we can't say that because somebody will judge us. You're like, our 200 followers are not going to fucking judge you, man. Like that nobody's looking at us and be like, oh, he changed his 3x10 to a more of a conjugate style. So like, they're not thinking that. And the other aspect of like MGK, and I love looking at Linkin Park for this too, is like fringe music, like music that is not super mainstream, but it has soul behind it. Like he is saying things he believes in. He is saying what he believes to be his truth. Linkin Park does the same thing. It's like alternative rock music. Nobody listens to alternative rock music unless they're like us, like we, like fringe type guys, but everybody listens to Linkin Park. Why is that? So like, even if you're not in the mainstream, even if you are a strength coach, which is like in the grand scheme of things, not a profession that everybody's looking up to, if you speak your truth and if you speak what you believe and you speak what your soul wants you to say, everybody is attracted to that. Everybody's attracted to real. Everybody's attracted to soul. Everybody's attracted to truth that you are putting out, not saying it's right, but that truth, that soul type feeling. So I look at musicians like that and I try to think about how can you expand that to our field? How can you grab pieces like that and expand it to our field? And that's something that's why I geek out about MGK. I geek out about all these musicians, because like they're leaders and they move people with their speaking, and they move crowds and they change people's lives. How can we take pieces from that and kind of use that in our field? But it was amazing. His concert was freaking amazing.
And maybe that's my problem with ISOs. That's why I haven't been able to get to that 10 minutes, because I'll blast, Drunk Face, Kiss Kiss. I'll listen to those during my ISOs and I'll drop after a minute and a half because I'm soft. But James, that's going to have to be something that we look into doing.
Yeah, man. Grand Brothers. You got to check them out. It's very like abstract, no words at all. It's how I like to go through my warm-ups. And now I'm a terrible weightlifter, so I guess it doesn't really like prove anything. But like, so like the first, during my warm-up before a meet, I'll be listening to Grand Brothers, which is just like piano. It's very abstract. Sometimes it's like there's nature sounds blended into it. But man, I feel like I can just be in my own head for a little while and enjoy the moment without pumping hardcore music
I'm about to check
my
that
system.
out.
Dude, it's great. Grand Brothers, check it out.
Kygo Piano Mix is my go-to ISO music.
Okay.
It's similar.
Okay.
It's similar to that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna love it then. I'll check it out.
Absolutely.
Austin, last question, man. And you can say, I already said this, you can say we touched on this earlier, but I always like to wrap up with the question of what do you think we're missing in the industry? Again, we've said a ton of things, and you can just say, stupid question, we've already answered that. But what do you think we're missing as strength coaches in the industry of strength and conditioning?
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like a broken record either, but I think it really is that I'm gonna branch out on that. That's why I like these podcasts too, is because like I just talk. I don't try to have talking points. I just try, and I like Jordan Peterson's thought process about this. When he presents, he doesn't make a PowerPoint presentation. He presents and has that conversation because he himself wants to figure out what his thoughts are and where his brain's going. And I loved that point. I was like, holy shit, that's super cool. But that's why I like these podcasts, because like I'm talking, but when I'm talking, I'm figuring out these things. And I really liked the thought process of the 3x10 societal issue. And that's where I think that's what we're missing in the strength conditioning world, is we put people on thrones, we create gods, we swear by them without the understanding of why we're doing that and what we want to feel. And I think that sets us back. I think that puts us in the same cycle that we've been in forever and ever and ever. And we need more rebels. We need more people to think like this. We need more people to have conversations like this. Like there's so many people that are so scared to have a conversation like this. And it's like, again, it's like, why are like, again, like we have combined less followers than like a famous puppy on Instagram, like, so like, why are we scared to have these conversations? Right. Who is going to judge us? And again, people are attracted to truth. People are attracted to soul. It's like, I won't get that job if I say this. It's like bullshit. And if you won't get that job because you say something like that, you don't want that job. As sexy and attractive as that is not the job for you. If you can't speak your truth, if you can't say your soul, that's not the job for you. And if you take that job, you're going to turn into a robot. You're going to turn into an animal, or it's like the SpongeBob movie where they have the, like, Plankton puts the buckets on all their heads and they're all just doing what Plankton said. Like, that's what we're going to turn into in the strength conditioning field if you take those jobs because somebody told you to, somebody said to do something. It's like, you can't live your life that way, and you need to get to a point of detaching enough to be able to see that. And I think having conversations with other people is the way to do that. Because I was a Plankton worshiper, like, I saw somebody on the throne. I saw DeFranco. I was like, oh my God, he has the answers. I saw Coach Boyle. I was like, oh my God, he has the answers. And then I started realizing, like, no, they don't. You talk to them and they don't have the answers. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of all of this. And you can start to detach from those feelings. You can detach from having the answer and be all right with that and explore some of these topics.
Yeah, man. Where can we find you on social media, bro? So much good stuff. Where can we find you?
Just Austin Jochum. Mostly Instagram. I got to work on the Twitter game a little bit. Twitter's just kind of me randomly coming up with thoughts. I'll come up with a thought and then I'll tweet it out instantly because I don't want to forget the thought. And then I go back and process it. And that usually goes on Instagram, but Instagram's kind of the spot to go.
Awesome. We'll send them to your online platform as well. You're doing some really awesome stuff there. But hey, bro, thanks so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and spending your time with us. You were one of the guys, James kind of challenged me in the beginning when we started this podcast of, put some names of some guys down you want to have conversations with and then reach out to them. Because I had said the same thing, like, no, I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk to Nick Winkelman. I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk to, some of these guys. And then he'll send me a text, say, hey, Winkelman's on. Hey, Zach DeCant's on. Hey, and that is, so I appreciate James for doing that. And I appreciate you coming on, man, because you were one of those names that I put down and said, man, we got to talk to this guy. You're really, really doing things to change the game. Best of luck in the future. We will stay in touch. Really appreciate you coming on Cutoffs and Coffee. This is episode 22, Cutoffs and Coffee. Like we always say, if you're listening, please continue to practice gratitude. Tell your loved ones that you love them. Live life stimulated, and also keep chopping wood. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see y'all soon.